You know, stories are at the core of the humanities, and so when Indiana Humanities decided to do Food for Thought, they figured that the best way to do a book about Indiana food was to collect the stories of the people who were actually involved in bringing us Indiana food. So at that point, Kristen Hess and I traveled all around the state, and we talked to over 80 people who are all involved in one way or another with Indiana food. The book that we created is not a guidebook, it's not a cookbook, it's not a best-of book, but it is a book of stories. It's a book about all of these people, whether they're cooks or farmers or food advocates, people that are concerned about world hunger, people that are interested in changing the way the world eats. It's people in big business, people in small business. It's people whose families have been involved with food for generations. And it's all happening right here in Indiana. The most amazing thing, I think, that we found was that everybody we talked to about Indiana food was agreed about one thing, and that was that this is the most dynamic time that any of them could remember in the history of Indiana food. When you read the stories in Food for Thought, you're going to be hearing, first of all, a lot of different voices. You're going to be hearing from young people and old people. You're going to be hearing from people who work the land and people who live in cities. You're going to be hearing stories about individuals who have taken tremendous risks to be able to do something that they love.
Well, the Miami are traditionally from this area. We think that we came out of the St. Joseph River up by South Bend.
Okay.
That's an origin story, if you will. We have our own traditional white corn that's been passed down through the generations from mother to daughter. And there was a time where it was not planted. The women are in charge of that, of planting that seed and nurturing that plant, and then harvesting it and providing food for their families.
Food doesn't start from the grocery store or the restaurant. It obviously starts from the land, and the fair is about the land and about harvesting and producing agriculture. And that's what we're here for, is because of agriculture, to showcase agriculture, youth, and education. When I started out in the fair business, and especially here, the number one reason people came to the fair were for the animals. Yeah. Number two were the exhibits, and number three was food. The culture of the fair has now turned in to be the number one reason why people come to the fairs, for the food.
I started brewing in the spring of 1999. Like I said, the first time that I smelled the grain hit the hot water and that initial release of aromatics from the mixing of the mash, I'll never forget that day. And watching the whole entire process, by the end of one day in the brew house, you know, I was kind of baffled by how it all worked, but followed the whole process, and it really, once again, ignited that fire to want to know as much, learn as much, work as hard as I possibly could, because by the time I did it once, I never wanted to do anything else.
As I travel around the world, optimism doesn't reign probably as strongly as I see it here in Indiana.
Really?
Probably makes me as most proud as they see agriculture production linking to food, linking to the social need to be able to serve. Agriculture is bigger than the farm. It may start there, and we always need to remember that that's where it is the essence of food is back at that farm. But FFA and many other experiences, even in Elanco, opened me up to, hey, it's about food. It's about the world. It's about providing something that is absolutely essential to people.
We came to the country really stupid city people. I mean, we knew nothing. We had one fiasco after another. You know, the acre of asparagus that all got drowned out because we didn't have enough dirt to put in the trenches. I mean, it's just one thing after another. So I came here with the idea of having my own vegetables, growing my own food, putting things by, which I still do. Still do a lot of, you know, freezing, canning, that sort of thing. And having our own meat and having our own milk. I wanted a cow.
Gunthorp Farms got started a long time ago. I'm at least a 4th generation pastured pig farmer. And I was the one that started in the meat business though, because in 1998 I actually sold pigs for less than what my grandpa sold them for in the Depression. And up until that point, you know, my family had always made a decent living raising pigs the same way as we do now, but selling them as live animals on the commodity market. You know, I had seen in magazines and papers and that it was, you know, especially on the coast, that it was kind of trendy for people to want free-range animals raised without all the chemicals, and that's what my family had always been doing. And I thought, this can't be that difficult. Well, it was probably that difficult.
I like to have a business all my life. In Cuba, you have not that opportunity. My family, before Cultural Revolution, they have businesses. You know, not in food, but stores, and that was in my mind. But she opened by herself, so all the fame is to her. You know, all the glory, for sure. She opened it. She stayed here like 7 or 8 months by herself. Was so busy, and then I quit and came here and joined it.
You stopped working at the community harvest?
I stopped working there. What is a great place. That I told my director, I'm gonna quit. She said, "Gus, you're the only one that are quitting during this crisis in the whole U.S. in the States." I said, "Yes, I'm gonna quit. I have to go with my partner."
You're gonna find this hard to believe, but making pies was not a dream. Okay, it was a way to get out of the factory in which I worked at. At 29, I found out that I had cancer, and I worked in the factory at the time. And when I got done with that, I just realized that life was too short to go someplace that you didn't want to go.
I worked in Manhattan for about 15 years, and then I went around to a little island called Anguilla. When I went back to New York after being in Anguilla for 2 years, I was back in my apartment. I was writing a cookbook about my time in the Caribbean, and I kind of said it doesn't feel the same. I thought I'd never leave New York, but after being in a small island and really kind of getting to know everybody on the island, they'd wave me down and tell me stories about, you know, cooking, and, you know, you really got to know the people. And New York just didn't feel the same. So I, you know, finished my book, I sold my apartment, and in between this time I'd come back to Indiana a few times, and I decided that it felt like somewhere in between Anguilla and New York.
My husband is the next generation of Hill Family Farm, so a 4th generation farmer, and we have been married, it'll be 12 years this summer, and so he has been a part of the farm since I got married, so kind of married into the family farm. My mom grew up on a pig farm. I always grew up in 4-H showing livestock. I was an animal science major at Purdue, so didn't necessarily grow up on the farm myself, but agriculture was always near and dear to my heart, and so I consider myself very lucky that I was able to marry into such a great family farm. And it's definitely my passion in ensuring that my children, if they so choose, have the opportunity to come home to the farm or be involved in agriculture. Definitely is what motivates my husband and I to keep going every day and make sure we're doing everything that we can to ensure a future for our children.
They say Indiana, right where we are, the Tipton County and Madison County, has the best soil in the U.S. And some say the world, because the actual Tipton County was named after the Tippmann Glacier. And it melted and ended right here. So all those minerals and topsoils, it pulled and dropped them right here. We have our own variety. We call them 401s. But there's about 20 varieties. Our variety we helped develop with Purdue University back in the day. And since then we have our own breeding program. You know, we just breed them year after year, trying to find the best qualities.
I really wanted to work with children, and I really want to show them what poor is. Not connect them to Ethiopian orphans, and really keep showing them things so that they can really see, like, you're not really poor, you just need to know how to get to your resources. He got that 20 by 20 little garden. We had at that time about 12, maybe to 15 kids. When that garden started, those kids were excited. We were like, wow, they really like this. And we will have like the tomatoes, a lot of greens and green beans. We will harvest those, and they loved giving those to people. This is from our garden. We thought, like, okay, they say they're poor. We wanted them to help. We want them to give back to the community. And they were saying that we're the one who was poor. But when they had the garden, it was a different story. They wanted to give, and they wanted to help. They were all excited. This is nice.